From Lagos, the nation's commercial capital, this is the News at 10. Live from Channels Television. Reporting tonight, Ayotunde Balogun.
Hello and welcome. Tonight, Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority meets stakeholders in the petroleum downstream sector to brainstorm on ending the spate of tanker accidents and explosions. 4 tax reform bills scale second reading in the House of Representatives. Lawmakers raise concerns about challenges and perceived contradictions with the Constitution. Next year presents its 2024 Violent Conflict Report in Abuja. Says Nigeria recorded over 5,000 incidents between 2020 and 2024, which led to over 20,000 deaths. And 1 person killed and 4 others injured in a Russian missile attack on Ukraine's capital overnight.
On business news tonight, Nigeria's crude oil production rises to 1.54 million barrels per day in January. That's according to OPEC's latest report.
On sports news tonight, Club Brugge stuns Atalanta 2-1 with a controversial penalty in stoppage time to boost the club's chances of reaching the last 16 of the Champions League.
And from Abuja, the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Mr. Nyesom Wike, assures house owners affected by road construction in the nation's capital of adequate compensation.
We start off with activities in the oil and gas sector. The Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority, the NNDPRA, has urged stakeholders in the petroleum downstream sector to ensure the uninterrupted flow of products across the country. The authority chief executive of the NMDPRA, Mr. Farouk Ahmed, stated this during a meeting with operators in the sector in Abuja. Mr. Ahmed revealed that the meeting focused on strategies to end the recent spate of petroleum tanker accidents and explosions. The meeting had in attendance representatives of Depot and Petroleum Marketers Association of Nigeria, the Nigeria Union of Petroleum and Natural Gas Workers, Petroleum Products Retail Outlets Owners Association of Nigeria, Major Oil Marketers Association of Nigeria, and the Nigerian Association of Road Transport Owners.
We thought it is necessary to call for stakeholder engagement so that we can look at it in totality. So we have various participants from tanker drivers, PTD, NATO, that's the tanker owners, as well as Nupen, Road Safety, Fire Service, and all of the stakeholders that are directly or indirectly involved in addressing the situation. So we reviewed all the concerns of both the tanker owners, tanker drivers, as well as the NUPEN, as well as looking at what the government as the Minister of Works can do in terms of roads, the set of the roads. Now, the key concerns here is when we look at the trend. In 2022, we had like 7 fatalities, whilst in 2023, we had 24 fatalities. By 2024, we had 341 fatalities. And to date, in 2025, from January to, say, yesterday, we had over 121 fatalities. That is of great concern to all of us. And that's why we call for this stakeholder engagement to see what mechanism can you put in place, what policy and regulations can we put in place. And we have to do with all stakeholders so that once we put regulations and policies in place, we'll have to abide by it in order to address these unnecessary, unacceptable incidences.
Let's now move to the National Assembly, where the controversial tax reform bills have scaled second reading in the House of Representatives. The bills were largely supported by lawmakers, though there were concerns about certain challenges that may occur and perceived contradictions with the Constitution. Issues such as value-added tax, derivation, and multiple taxation were also raised on the floor of the House. Our National Assembly correspondent, Terry Kumi, reports.
I think it has
It is a big day in the House of Representatives. This explains the full House. The House has dedicated the day solely to revive the conversation on what could be described as perhaps the most popular bills in the 10th National Assembly, the 4 tax reform bills scheduled for second reading.
It's a near-perfect document.
The debate begins with lawmakers largely speaking in support of the bills.
I saw it from where I came from as a subtle restructuring of this great nation. Also, a kind of a handshake across the Niger to our people.
Nobody knew that we will ever pass this bill in this House to go for second reading. But today, from what I've heard so far from our colleagues, I believe automatically this bill has gone for second reading.
There is need for us to harmonize the various tax bills that we have in this country. There is no denying the fact that most of the bills that deals with our taxes in this country are outdated.
No to the phasing out of relevant agencies of government that are popular and have also have a lot to deliver to the expectation of the people. Naseni, for instance, the TED Fund, for instance, the Speaker, the Leader of the House, I quote you, NIDA, for instance. I quote my leader for being so sagacious to say that these agencies will not be defaced. They will remain to continue to serve our people.
However, there are some concerns.
There is preponderance of ambiguity in this act because of the absence of interpretation clause. The interpretation clause is not robust, did not address the issue of derivation. What is derivation in this act?
The bills also seek to amend over 40 acts which have not been placed before us. Those 40 acts should be placed before us so that we compare against those bills.
I'd like to also advise that there could be a digitization of audited accounts in the new bill, which would stop the rampant or incessant frivolous issuance of account statements, audited accounts by companies. I also want to advise against executive issuance of exemption orders.
This 5% of oil sector contribution to the GDP is what constitutes 60% of funds or revenue to budgets. And again, it contributes 90% of your foreign exchange. Therefore, we have to do a lot to ramp up crude production, and that is what Section 85 seeks to.
All 4 tax reform bills are eventually passed through second reading.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The debate on the floor still suggests that there is still so much work to be done on issues like derivation, increase in value-added tax, and certain provisions that lawmakers fear could run in conflict with the Constitution. Terry Ikumi, Channels Television News.
Meanwhile, the House of Representatives Committee on Public Petitions has summoned the Controller General of Nigeria Customs Service, Adewale Adeniyi, to appear before it Tuesday next week. A statement issued by the media head Public Petitions Committee of the House of Representatives, Chuks Oko, says Mr. Adeniyi is to answer a petition before the committee over the refusal of some top officials of the service to leave the service after their due retirement dates. Obasi Fersen Health Foundation had petitioned the 10th House, alleging that some assistant controllers and controllers were due for retirement but have blatantly refused to leave the service. Issuing the summons, the House noted that the Controller General has a duty as a public officer to explain to Nigerians what the true position is. The committee has also threatened to order the arrest of the Director General and Chief Executive Officer of Nigerian Identity Management Commission if she fails to come in person to answer charges on refusal to pay for state-of-the-art software development project installed and deployed to the Commission by a private firm, Truid Limited. Still at the National Assembly, this time the Senate has approved amendments to key clauses in the bills establishing the Northwest, Southwest and Southeast Development Commissions, as well as the National Youth Service Corps Trust Fund Establishment Bill 2025. The amendments were made following a motion titled Recommittal of Bills to the Committee of the Whole, sponsored by Senate Leader Okpeyemi Bamidele. The upper chamber observed that the funding clauses in these bills appear to contradict Section 162 of the 1999 Constitution, which mandates that all funds accrued to the Federation be paid into the Consolidated Revenue Fund. Following the passage of the revised bills, President of the Senate, Godswill Akpabio, affirmed that the amendments aligned the proposed laws with constitutional requirements. He assured Nigerians that the bills will be transmitted to President Bola Tinubu for assent. Now to some rather disturbing news. Nigeria has recorded over 5,000 violent incidents between 2020 and 2024, which has led to over 20,000 deaths. This is according to a research-based group next year during the presentation of its 2024 Violent Conflict Report in Abuja. The managing partner of the group, Mr. Ndubuisi Wokolo, says the organization conducted an in-depth examination of patterns in violent conflict by leveraging data from its comprehensive database.
Nigeria's security situation appears to be unabating as cases of terrorism, banditry and kidnapping are recorded across the country. Next year, a research-based group has been compiling these incidents over the years, and the group is presenting the annual Violent Conflict Report for 2024.
In 2024, we saw a bit of reduction in violent database. It decreased by incidents, but it didn't decrease by number in terms of casualties. But we'll be able to unravel this. If you ask an average Nigerian which part of the geopolitical zone in Nigeria had the highest number of killings, he's likely to tell you maybe it's the Northwest.
When banditry started, it was a conversation about them being aggrieved, and they are trying to, make a case for issues around injustices being carried out against them. But you will notice that you have bandits now who are using illicit mining to, fund the activities, and kidnapping and the rest.
Stakeholders share their thoughts on the spate of violent conflicts in the country and the way forward.
As a program which is evidence-based, driven by issues on the ground, by needs on the ground, we find the Nexia conflict database to be a very, very useful tool. And we are looking forward to collaborating with Nexia to ensure that this makes the maximum impact that it should have.
But one of the key things I want to point out, is how illicit mining, to a very large extent, is informing rural violence across different parts of the country, and how also illicit mining also is disguised in form of farmer header crisis, in different rural areas and all that. And I think that the report captured that very well. A critical component of it is how we as stakeholders, run with these recommendations from this report in terms of the response angle, from different stakeholders within Nigeria, both from government, international partners, civil society organizations, academia.
The report tagged mutations of terror and conflicts, identified factors that will shape the violent conflicts in the country, including the expansion of the Lakurawa group, hate speech, as well as the events in the Sahel states.
For many years, countries around the world have worked tirelessly to address the issue of groups who promote their ideology based on intolerance or even violence, and it's no different here in Nigeria. For this reason, National Coordinator of the National Counterterrorism Center, Office of the National Security Advisor, Major General Adamulaka, says violent extremism remains one of the most complex challenges that threatens Nigeria's national security. General Laka stated this in Abuja at a workshop and validation meeting on preventing and countering violent extremism guidelines and strategic communication plan. The national coordinator, who admits that violent extremism had also threatened the very fabric of Nigerian communities, institutions and social cohesion, explains that the event highlights the unified determination of government to enhance the nation's capacity to counter violent extremism.
Preventing and countering violent extremism is not solely a security issue, but also a governance, development, and social cohesion issue. Hence, it requires a multifaceted, multi-stakeholder, and multidimensional approach. Our success depends on the coordination of efforts, synergy of policies, and harmonization of strategies at all levels. At the end of this workshop, we expect to have a clear roadmap for the localization of the policy framework, validated preventing and countering violent extremism guidelines, and an endorsed strategic plan, all of which will serve as blueprint for future implementation.
In part 2 after the break, EFCC formally hands over forfeited assets of NOC University to the federal government. Vice President Kashim Shettima reaffirms government's commitment to national development. Please stay with us. Welcome back. If you have just joined us, you're watching the News at 10 and Channels Television, broadcasting live from Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority meets stakeholders in the petroleum downstream sector to brainstorm on ending the spate of tanker accidents and explosions. Board tax reform bill scales second reading in the House of Representatives. Lawmakers raise concerns about challenges and perceived contradictions with the Constitution. Next year presents its 2024 Violent Conflicts Report in Abuja, says Nigeria recorded over 5,000 incidents between 2020 and 2024, which led to over 20,000 deaths. And 1 person killed and 4 others injured in a Russian missile attack on Ukraine's capital overnight. Oftentimes, the question gets asked, how near or far is Nigeria to become a fully developed nation? As time goes by, government continues to prioritize national development to ensure economic growth is enhanced and inclusive to better the lives of citizens. Well, Vice President Kashim Shettima says President Bola Tinubu remains committed to ensuring inclusivity and national development. He stated this at the Presidential Villa Abuja during the formal handover of the property and assets of NOC University to the federal government by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission. President Bola Tinubu had directed the Federal Ministry of Education to rename the privately owned institution to the Federal University of Applied Sciences, Kachia, Kaduna State, following an order of final forfeiture given by a federal high court in Abuja. Our State House correspondent, Emperor Simon, reports.
Vice President Kashim Shettima, Governor Ubasani of Kaduna State, and stakeholders from Kaduna South, including the Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Musa, are in the conference hall of the Vice President's office at the State House for the official handing over of the property and assets of NOC University to the federal government by the EFCC Chairman, Mr. Ola Olukayode. NOC University, formerly privately owned, is now renamed Federal University of Applied Sciences, Kachia, following the order of final forfeiture given by a federal high court in Abuja last year. The Vice President says the decision is in keeping with President Bola Tinubu's promise to the people of southern Kaduna, as well as a testament of the administration's effort to give every part of the country a sense of belonging.
Let's coalesce into a single force, irrespective of differences in political affiliations, religious persuasions, tribal or sectional backgrounds.
The move is also considered apt in fostering peace and security.
Everybody in Southern Kaduna and Kaduna in general is excited about this great feat. I just want to say thank you very much. Us in the security sector, these are ideas that will bring peace to the entire region, and peace is what we try to preach.
The new Federal University of Applied Sciences, Kachia, will offer various courses, and the Kaduna State government is promising adequate support to make the institution succeed.
We will ensure that all the processes are concluded, including giving the CFO of the land to the Honorable Minister of Education. And I also want to inform everyone that Mr. President directed that the university should be captured in this very budget of 2025.
These universities will offer various courses in areas of applied sciences, medicine,
pharmacy, nursing, and physiotherapy.
In addition to education, Vice President Shatima reaffirms the Tinubu administration's commitment to infrastructure development in southern Kaduna, particularly in road construction. From the presidential villa, Emperor Simon, Channels Television News.
The welfare and training of personnel are two things I will prioritize. These are the words of the Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Olufemi Oluyede. He stated this in his remarks when addressing personnel of 4 Special Forces Command Doma in Nasarawa State during a one-day visit. General Oluyede was there to commission the newly constructed residential house for the Regimental Sergeant Major, authorized by the Chief of Army Staff for RSMs across the country, which is geared towards promoting regimentation and personnel welfare.
And for the service of command. Put measures in place to come and establish a new school here, new special forces school, so that we can have you better trained and have you more functional. I want to have special forces soldiers that can put in the bush and go to sleep. So very soon you will see things taking place here, so that we can have a better functional special forces of the Nigerian Army. So your welfare, your training is going to be our top priority. So that even when you are working as soldiers, you'll be proud that you are soldiers. That even when you are leaving the army, you'll be proud that you have served Nigeria. I am aware that there are so many challenges ranging from RCA, Ops allowance. We are trying to see that. Maybe by the time the National Assembly approves the budget, then we expect better welfare for our soldiers. Is that what I want to get from you today? Like I've done in some other places, is a competence that I will do my work as your leader to make things better for you. And you as my soldiers will do your work.
The war against crime and criminality continues in Kaduna as the State Police Command has arrested 580 suspects for committing various offences, including banditry, kidnapping, armed robbery, and other related crimes in different parts of the state. The State Commissioner of Police, Mr. Mohammed Rabiu, paraded some of the suspects at the command's headquarters. He says police operatives also rescued 30 kidnapped victims from the custody of kidnappers during the operations. Authorities of the Nnamdi Azikiwe University, Awka, Anambra State, have commenced an investigation into a scuffle involving a lecturer in the Department of Theatre Arts of the institution and a student over a filmed social media content. A spokesman of the school, Jalita Louis, says the management of the institution, led by the Vice-Chancellor, Professor Joseph Ikechebulu, will impose the appropriate sanction on any of the parties found culpable. In viral videos, a third-year student in the Department of History and International Studies, Godi Precious, was seen around the corridors dancing before her phone, capturing a TikTok moment when the lecturer, Dr. Chukwudi Okoye, walked past her from behind. The incident snowballed quickly after the lecturer tapped the student, and then a physical altercation ensued with the student, later claiming that the lecturer had touched her in an inappropriate manner. So let's head to the nation's capital now, and Victoria Longjohn is standing by to give us the latest from our Abuja studios. Hello, Victoria.
Thank you, Ayo. The Director General of the International Labour Organization, Mr. Gilbert Himbo, is urging the federal government to seek social justice and pursue structured dialogue to ensure dignity of life. Mr. Himbo made the call at a meeting with labour union leaders and representative of the Minister of Labour and Employment in Abuja. According to him, social justice is the recipe for addressing the challenges of insecurity and forced labour migration in Nigeria.
Nigeria, as the region's largest economy, faces additional pressures. The flooding, the insecurity in some part of the countries, the migration, particularly the labor migration, which forces many young people to seek opportunities abroad, and we do know sometimes at great personal risk. The ILO's founding principle since 1919 remains clear. Lasting peace is only possible through social justice. To tackle these challenges, we have launched in ILO the Global Coalition for the Social Justice. The market forces alone cannot define the future of work. It must be shaped through structured dialogue to ensure fair wages, to ensure labor rights, to ensure social security, to ensure dignity of life.
Now, still ahead on the news at 10, Nigeria's crude oil production raises to 1.54 million barrels per day in January, and that's according to OPEC's latest report. That's some business news. To join us again. Welcome back to the news. The Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Mr. Nyesom Wike, says his administration has started compensating owners of houses affected by road construction in the metropolis. The minister said this while speaking to journalists after inspecting some ongoing road construction projects in Wassa and Gishiwe districts of the nation's capital. He also says he's optimistic that the project will be ready by May this year and appealed to residents living in areas where construction is ongoing to bear with the situation for a while.
Let me start by saying I'm quite impressed with the speed of work by the various contractors, particularly those who are carrying out road construction, Julius Berger, CGC, as we saw, and quite impressive. I believe that we're going to, meet up like they promised by the grace of God by May this year. And look at the judges' quarters, the FCT, the Federal High Court, and the Court of Appeal. It's really amazing with the level of the level they've gotten to. And that's what I've always said, that with proper management of funds, contractors are willing to put in their best. When they see that funds are coming, they will not hesitate to work. Well, for now, that's why I said the cooperation of the various communities. The resettlement department has said the way it was explained to us has been done. Where we are standing now has been done. Then the water issue, they almost that's about 500 something meters. We believe before the end of the week we would have settled that area. So we are already paying the compensation. The funds have been made available.
And the African Medical Center of Excellence is promising to revolutionize Nigeria's healthcare when it becomes fully operational. The management of the center said this during a progress inspection of the center in Abuja. The center plans to offer a wide range of medical services, including diagnostic, therapeutic, and preventive care. According to the management, the center is equipped with the latest medical equipment and technology, including advanced imaging and diagnostic tools, to ensure that patients receive the best possible care. Our correspondent Benny Ark reports.
Present at this progress inspection tour of the African Medical Center of Excellence are dignitaries and top government officials, including the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Mr. George Akume, the Deputy President of the Senate, Senator Jibril Barau, federal lawmakers, and the President of Afrexim Bank, Professor Ben Orama, who was joined by the management of the center. Located in the nation's capital, the center has 500-bed capacity, offering world-class comprehensive diagnostic and treatment in the areas of oncology, cardiovascular, and hematology care. In clinical partnership with King's College Hospital, London, the centre is developed by Frexim Bank with full facilitation and support of the federal government.
Actually, the hospital will...
The management of the centre emphasised that the facility will operate at the highest standards of excellence with a commitment to providing patient-centred care.
There are 3 or 4 key objectives of the AMCE. One of them was to make sure that patients, all patients, can come for treatment regardless of their ability to pay.
We have advanced theaters as well as nuclear medicine. Nuclear medicine we have a SPECT CT that would use in making diagnosis as well as monitor disease.
The guests were given a tour of the facility.
So in this particular case, where there's prostate cancer, I think
the centre is the first of 5 planned medical centres to be launched across Africa.
This is more than just a medical facility. It is a symbol of the kind of things we as Africans must do to begin to turn around our fortunes.
We had a presentation by the project managers and the leads on this project, and most of their asks have been taken note of. As we go back to the Senate from here, we're going to communicate with the relevant stakeholders and ensure that what is necessary for this project to kick off by June of this year will be provided for by the federal government of Nigeria.
The African Medical Center of Excellence is set to revolutionize healthcare delivery in Africa. When fully operational, it will not only provide world-class medical services, but also position Abuja as a leading healthcare destination in the region. Benny Ark, Channels Television News.
And that's it from the nation's capital. It's now back to Ayo for the rest of the news at 10.
Thank you so much, Victoria. Leadership and how it influences entrepreneurial success form the crux of submissions as the book titled Entrepreneurial Leadership and Learning Orientation is unveiled in Lagos. The author and managing director of Anchor Insurance PLC, Mr. Augustine Ebose, says continuous learning and relearning is key to success. Chairman of the occasion and former President Olusegun Obasanjo notes that the 3 elements in the book come together, and there cannot be successful entrepreneurship without learning new ways.
The roll call of eminent Nigerians here is impressive. Former Secretary General of the Commonwealth, Chief Emeka Anyaoku, former Foreign Affairs Minister General Ike Nwachukwu, as well as former Minister for Health and Social Services, Prince Julius Adelusi Adelui, are some of the prominent Nigerians present for the launch of the book, Entrepreneurial Leadership and Learning Orientation. Former President Olusegun Obasanjo's wife, Bola Olusegun Obasanjo, takes to the stage on behalf of her husband and delivers a goodwill message which essentially cites leadership as the most important of the 3 elements in the book.
What do you have to learn? What do you need to understand? What do you have to unlearn? And what do you have to relearn? Augustine makes all this clear in this book on leadership.
This was followed by other personalities who give their impression about the literary work.
In Nigeria, but in countries all over the world that have developed, the bedrock of the economy of these countries are usually SMEs and MSMEs, because that's where the production in any country begins.
If only we could begin to encourage our financial industries to look long term and support these young men and young women, our country would not be beggarly.
It would be unfair if we do not populate the universities with this book, even as a textbook. You've done a great job, and I congratulate you.
Author of the book and managing director of Anchor Insurance PLC, Augustine Ebose, explains the inspiration behind the book.
My father said a man without learning is not courageous. Even if you have courage, you are not courageous enough. Continue learning and relearning and unlearning will always give you that edge above anyone. And that is the reason why I wrote this book.
The book reviewer highlights key aspects of the 212-page book.
The Nigerian educational curriculum requires a rethinking away from rote learning and the objective of passing examinations and the grading of scripts to instill entrepreneurial behavior. This will probably address the challenge of a disconnected school-to-work transition that the country faces.
It is very important for a leader to think forward and make sure that the pitfall that he had or that behind him doesn't go into it.
The book has been reviewed.
The author used the opportunity provided by the book to bring his more than 25 years experience in public and private sectors to create a bestseller he believes will lead to the growth and longevity of SMEs through learning, relearning and unlearning of old business strategies by entrepreneurs in Nigeria.
Business News is up next with Joker Rogers.
Thank you, Ayotunde. Welcome to Business News. Nigeria's crude oil production has risen to 1.54 million barrels per day in January from 1.49 million barrels per day recorded in December, and that's according to OPEC's latest monthly oil market report. The 54,000 barrels per day increase in output represents a significant rise, while the figure remains within OPEC's production quota for the country. Meanwhile, Nigeria retains its leading position on the chart for Africa's top oil producers within OPEC. At the same time, Nigeria's oil rig count remained unchanged in the month of January. President Bola Tinubu has commended the International Finance Corporation for its $50 million equity investment in the Lagos Free Zone, a Petroleum-backed initiative. The president describes it as a sign of growing global confidence in Nigeria's economy and a boost to the country's first deep-sea port-based private special economic zone. According to a special advisor on information and strategy, the president stressed that strategic partnerships like this reinforce Nigeria's position as a top investment destination and welcomes more transformative investments. The IFC's funding will support land development, industrial expansion, and logistics infrastructure within the 860-hectare zone. Meanwhile, the president has also commended Google CEO Sundar Pichai for the company's commitment to advancing artificial intelligence and digital transformation in Nigeria. President Tinubu met with the Google team in Paris alongside the Minister of Communication, Innovation and Digital Economy, Bosun Tijani. According to a statement by Presidential Advisor Bayo Ononuga, discussions focused on forging a strategic partnership to accelerate Nigeria's AI and digital growth. The collaboration aims to position Nigeria as a leading tech hub by expanding digital infrastructure, promoting AI research, boosting cloud adoption, and equipping the workforce with essential digital skills. Global ratings agency Fitch says Nigeria's smaller third-tier banks are more likely to merge or downgrade their licenses to meet the Central Bank of Nigeria's new capital requirements. In a report released today, Fitch notes that while larger first and second-tier banks have made progress in raising capital, third-tier banks have struggled to keep up, making mergers, acquisitions, or license downgrades a more viable option for them. In March 2024, the CBN introduced a significant hike in paid-in capital requirements comprising share capital and share premium for all commercial, merchant, and non-interest banks. Well, the domestic stock market hit higher levels today as investors continue buy interest in Dangote Cement. Ladid Williams has more.
Hello and welcome to the Stock Market Report. Well, the midweek trading session continued in the green, but with a much bigger move up and new highs at this point. Over 1% for the all-share index, hitting the 107,000 level and crossing it for the first time ever today by 822 points. And we see the market cap also hitting a new level of 67.2 trillion. Investors really bullish today. And we see the market mover, Dangote Cement, rising about 3% today to close at 431 naira. To the sectoral performance now, we see consumer goods sector that's shining today with the likes of Honeywell Flour Mill PLC, that was up over 9%. Nigerian breweries and others adding to the share price there, taking it up 1.44%. Banking counter not left out with a 0.49% rise. Well, February is looking good for some investors with the all-share index hitting a new high today, up over 2% already for the month, and not following the red theme of Valentine Week.
Let's see the closing numbers for those other major global stock markets. That's business news tonight. Back to you, Ayotunde.
Still to come on the news at 10, one person killed and 4 others injured in a Russian missile attack on Ukraine's capital Kiev overnight. Join us again. Welcome back. Simon Pius is up next with Around the World in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the channel's studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. One person has been killed and 4 injured in a Russian missile attack on Ukraine's capital. Kiev's mayor said a 9-year-old girl was among the injured in the strikes which occurred early on Wednesday. The Ukrainian military said it had shot down 6 of 7 ballistic missiles and 71 drones launched by Russia, which sparked several fires throughout the city. It comes after President Volodymyr Zelensky suggested Ukraine would be prepared to swap land with Russia in potential peace negotiations. There are fears about a possible resumption of the war in Gaza after Israel's Security Cabinet supported President Trump's demand for all remaining hostages to be returned on Saturday. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says he had ordered troops to amass inside and around Gaza in response to Hamas's announcement that it was postponing freeing more hostages until further notice. Netanyahu did not specify whether he was demanding the release of all 76 remaining hostages or just the 3 due to be freed this Saturday. Hamas responded by saying it remained committed to the ceasefire deal and that Israel was responsible for any complications or delays. The UN says a former Bangladesh Prime Minister, Sheikh Hasina, and her government tried to cling on to power using systematic, deadly violence against protesters that could amount to crimes against humanity. UN human rights investigators accused the deposed government of a brutal response to mass opposition last year, in which they said up to 1,400 people had been killed, mostly by security forces. The UN team said an official policy to attack and violently repress anti-government protesters had been directed by political leaders and senior security officials. Hasina, who had been in office for 15 years, fled by helicopter to India shortly before crowds stormed her residence last August.
Can I just ask you about your comments?
No comments, please.
Are you anti-Semitic? Did you kill patients at Bankstown?
2 Australian nurses have been suspended after a video appeared to show them threatening to kill Israeli patients and boasting about refusing to treat them. The man and woman, both employees at a Sydney hospital, are now being investigated by police. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese condemned the attack as sickening and shameful after it began circulating online. It comes less than a week after Australia passed tougher laws against hate crimes following a wave of high-profile anti-Semitic attacks.
Never in my wildest dreams.
did I think that I would be standing here with two staff of the New South Wales health system having said such horrendous things.
A truck cabin that was swallowed by a sinkhole in Japan 2 weeks ago has been located in a nearby sewer pipe. Drone images suggest that a human body is inside the cabin, but it is unclear if it is that of the truck's missing 74-year-old driver. The sinkhole, which now measures 40 metres in diameter, opened at a road intersection in Yashio City near Tokyo. Coca-Cola's chief executive says the company may have to sell more drinks in plastic bottles in the US if President Donald Trump's tariffs end up making aluminium cans more expensive. It comes after Mr. Trump ordered a 25% import tax on all steel and aluminium entering the US, which could drive up the price of canned food and drink items in the country. In December, the beverage giant scaled down its sustainability target of using 50% recycled materials in its packaging by 2030 to using 35 to 40% by 2035. Environmental groups have labelled Coca-Cola as the top global plastic polluter for 6 consecutive years.
Monty has won the working group 3 straight years.
And a giant schnauzer named Monty has been crowned Best in Show at the Westminster Kennel Club Dog Show, the most prestigious dog show in the US. After reaching the final 3 years in a row, Monty beat more than 2,500 canines to become the first giant schnauzer to take home the show's top prize.
Giant schnauzer.
The dog club is the oldest in the US dedicated to showing dogs, with its annual show now in its 149th year, the second longest sporting event held in the US after the Kentucky Derby.
And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel's studios in Lagos.
Thanks, Simon, and welcome to Sports News. We begin with the Nigeria Women Football League Premiership, where FC Robo battled to a 2-1 win over Ibom Angels here in Lagos. Miriam Yahaya opened the scoring in the 68th minute, while Gus Gibbs, Afigbe Fioto's own goal 10 minutes later, made it 2 before Ogibeso Suji scored the consolation for the visitors in the 84th minute. In the meantime, the battle of former champions Rivers Angels and Bayelsa Queens also ended in a 1-1 draw. The match between Niger Ratels and Delta Queens produced same scoreline, while Adamawa Queens were 2-0 winners over winless Benue Queens. In Group A, Edo Queens are back to winning ways after 2 successive draws, beating Nasarawa Amazons 2-0. Ekiti Queens recorded same result against Confluence Queens. Let's turn to the Champions League now, which gets our attention next, as Club Brugge shocked Italian side Atalanta with an injury time penalty to boost the Belgians' chances of reaching the last 16 of the competition. Atalanta looked to be escaping Brugge with a draw after Mario Pulisic leveled Ferran Jogla's fabulous opener for the hosts, but the club had other ideas as a controversial penalty in stoppage time, and then netted the decisive kick for a 2-1 victory. With that sports tonight, I'm Kelly. It's back to Ayotunde.
And the main news again. The Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority, the NMDPRA, today met with stakeholders in the petroleum downstream sector to brainstorm on ending the spate of tanker accidents and explosions in the country. That's the news at 10 tonight. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Ayotunde Balogun. From all of us here, you have a good night.